Hello and welcome to Galactic Real Talk, where cosmic wisdom meets real business. And I am super excited to be sharing with you today. I've got an incredible guest joining me, Jessica Adams. But before I hand over to her, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me. So if you're new here, I'm Bianca. I'm a Galactic channel and a business owner, and I love to speak about how we bring all of our multidimensional self into business, into the real world, into real life application. So on that line, I've got an incredible guest here who is a quiet disruptor and is doing some incredibly cool things out there. And I think the best way of explaining it is just handing you straight to Jessica, who can explain who you are, a little bit about what's going on in your world. And actually, I'd love you to share a little bit of your journey as well, because I think it's really beautiful to hear how you got here as well.
Okay, thanks, Bea. Really lovely to be here with you. Always love our time together. So I'm a business mentor and strategist, and I work with seasoned founders and leaders, people who want to their business to really reflect the person that they become, not the version of themselves and the version of their business that was maybe built in reactivity and urgency and fear and scarcity and hustle. They want to design a more regenerative, life-thriving business that protects their creativity, their energy, clarity, and is really true to their capacity. And I work a lot with the seasons and inter seasons, nature seasons and cycles. I'm really helping founders to reawaken their intuition and feel fully alive in their businesses. So yeah, that's me. And I also work with the University of Birmingham in the business school inside their decolonisation programme. And I host Wild Founders gatherings. So really putting things into practice with other people in community, in nature.
That's like multi-dimensional in itself. You do so many different things. It's never just one thing. And I love that. And I think that is something that I see is sometimes we're kind of told as we grow up, right? We've got to be in one box. But actually, we can have many, many different ways of doing business, the things we love and bringing them all together. And just what you said there is, you are a coach, you are a mentor, you are working with the University of Birmingham, you've got an incredible network, or you have created an incredible network. And I'm part of that beautiful community that you've built. And it's phenomenal. And when I first found out about the community you were building, I was so drawn to it. And it's here in Bristol, where we walk outside in nature and we meet and we talk about business in a non-conventional format. And for me, that was one of the most disruptive things that I'd seen. I couldn't believe how simple and how incredible just doing something like that is. Why are we sitting behind desks in boardrooms when how much more easeful is it to do business outside? But it shouldn't be disruptive, but it still feels kind of disruptive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. So yeah, I mean, if you want to share a bit more about that, that would be amazing. But also I love what you said about the work you're doing at University of Birmingham and decolonisation of business. Now, people might have been like, what on earth is that? And I know the first time you said that to me, I thought, what is that? But actually, when you break it down and when you share that to me, I really think, oh my God, this makes sense. And it connects so much with a lot of the things that I talk about in, on this show and on, other videos that I've done and just generally in my work, both in the marketing world and here in this space too. So yeah, it'd be great to hear more about what does that look like? What is that mission that you've got? And it's very clear mission that you've got to, help with this decolonization process.
Yeah, so first I'll speak to the bit you said right at the beginning about how we feel kind of really boxed in. So for me personally, if I'm not doing like expressing my full self in a different like a range of contexts, I feel like completely squashed. I get depressed, I get anxious. So for me, it's always been really important to really go with what I'm interested in, but not just to follow one passion blindly at the expense of all else. So clients will often come to me and they've been really successful in building a business based on a certain model. But then what happens when your success is built on that box and you realise that you're done with the box and you want to unwrap the box and kind of release more of your gifts? That's a really tricky point. So how do you navigate that pivot, and how do you start to create a business that allows you to express your full self, or additional multiple income streams or other businesses that will complement your main business. So I think that's really, really key to really always feel into like what is bringing you alive and give yourself possibilities to explore that. And by decolonization, then, like how do those two kind of link together? Well, in the colonial mindset, it's about like conquering. It's like success is a linear path. Social mobility is the ultimate aim. You've got to dominate the market. You're in competition with others. There's a very like a power over dynamic. So I as a mentor in a colonial mindset, I have all the power and the knowledge and the strategy, and I know exactly what you need to do to be happy and successful. Well, you know, that's kind of why we are where we are, because we're always in competition, not with each other, but also then we're in competition with ourselves. Because what about, there's a part of you that is really ambitious, but then there's a part of you that actually I just want to cuddle up with a book, and I really love spending time with my kids, and I like having my hands in the soil, and I like painting a painting. So it's allowing that full expression for everyone to have their own experiences and to find their own paths. And I was thinking about it in the garden today as I was walking around. It's not like individual versus collective. It's not like individual or collective. It's individual and collective. So really trusting ourselves that when we are creating and leading from like connection to source and life, then that will have a ripple effect of more life that will impact the collective and enrich the individual, and there's that partnership.
It was so beautiful what you said about that ripple effect, because I channel a lot about that ripple effect, and my guides show it me like these lights being turned on. So when one, that's kind of the visual I get.
Yeah.
When we shine our light, we kind of light up the next person, we light up the next person. It's exactly what you've just said. It's the ripple effect through the embodiment of us creating from truth who we really are and expressing in the world in our fullest expression. And that you can't be told by somebody else what that looks like, because it cannot look the same. And that's so much wisdom in that, to say, I've never thought about it like that. I suppose I've never thought about it like, this is where it's come from. This is why we've ended up like here, right here. And this is what we're here to break down, and that's what I channel as well. It is going to break down. That is the only way forwards. And it's the breaking down of the old systems that allows that emergence of new systems. And I think that's exactly what you're speaking about. If more people can connect with that truth within them, the inner world that creates the outer world, and then we collectively start to come together creating in the same way. It's not against me against you. It's not, you're not against anyone. In fact, you're just creating from what it is that you love, the joy within you, the excitement. And what a amazing world we will be living in once we move to that place.
Yeah.
What do when you think about that, what do you think are the key things that, if I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, okay, that sounds cool, that sounds really nice, I'd love to be there now. But what are the key things we can all be doing to really challenge ourselves in business around that? Like, how do we pick up when we're operating from maybe old paradigm and feel into that new paradigm for ourselves?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to remember is it's not a new paradigm. Like for 5,000 generations of humanity before like the Bronze Age set in and the Age of Separation, we lived in symbiotic relationship with nature. We weren't separate from each other, and we weren't separate from the natural world. We weren't separate from the cosmos, from the universe. We it's less of a like inventing a new way. It's more of a remembering that we know how to do this. Like if we stop and we pause and we feel in and we notice like when we're in fear and scarcity, which will I experience like really viscerally, I have a little girl inside me who gets her like sword out, and she's fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And so it's just noticing those kind of the moments in ourselves where we're reacting from fear and scarcity because we want to be valid, we want to be seen, we want to be recognized, we want to have know that we're safe essentially. So we can let ourselves know that we're safe, that there is enough for everyone, and that we know how to do this. And the image I really love and keep going back to is the image of the fern. You know, the fern curling from the spiral, and then as it opens, each of the leaves on the fern is like a repetition of the pattern of the whole fern itself. And if we think of ourselves as being like one leaf on the fern, or one kind of small tiny part of that fern, and then the more that we open and expand, the more beautiful the whole fern can be. So if we imagine that we are part of a pattern that's embedded in the intelligence of life, and we just allow ourselves to be who we are and expand into that pattern, then it makes the whole pattern more beautiful. And when we crush our own creativity and life force, the fern folds back in on itself prematurely, and it can't quite open to that the sunlight and the delicious food that it makes from the sunlight.
I love the point that you made there about remembering, because it is true, and it will be new to us in this probably lifetime of where we are, because we've been living in this context. But actually it's not new at all, because we do have all these tools within us right now. We remember, if we allow ourselves to connect with that wisdom, we remember how to do this. It's like that unlearning of how we've been shown we've got to be, and deep remembering of who we are. And I think that's beautiful, and that's such a powerful way of phrasing it, and also feels empowering, because it doesn't feel so scary when we remember that we actually know, we've got to just lean into that. And I loved what you just said about the fern. And I don't know if it was you, it probably was you actually, Jessica, that told me this, but someone said that a way of thinking about it is, when you think of all the flowers that bloom, say in the summer period, and they all bloom next to each other and they're all different, they're not comparing each other. They're just equally thriving in that, you know, in that blossoming, in that, moment where they all come into full bloom. And there is no competition. There is just harmony. Each one thriving is a beautiful thing. And I remember that really distinctly, because it was actually quite a powerful moment for me. I used to be quite very strongly in, I was very clearly in a corporate background, which I've been trained with every inch of me to be competitive. And I remember really feeling quite like, almost like an exhale at that moment. It's like, okay, yeah, actually, it doesn't matter. It's not a competition between me and somebody else. Why can't everybody thrive? What is that makes us think that, if somebody else is really thriving, it means something about us? That's quite a fascinating way that, and maybe I don't think of myself as being like that, but in that moment I'm sure it was you actually said that to me. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So but it's so powerful. It made me reflect on how I'm doing that, even though I didn't really consciously understand I was. It's from the conditioning that gets layered on.
Yeah, and the word unlearning is which you use, is one of my favourites. So it's not like we have to learn more tools and techniques and, really kind of just go into overwhelm. We've got all the information that we need. We do not have a problem with information or knowing what to do. What we do have a problem with, and that we get to really kind of heal and repair, or help to thrive, is a relationship with ourselves and our relationship with others, and the relationship with the more than human world. So this isn't an information problem, this isn't a learning problem, it's an unlearning opportunity to heal and repair the relationship with our essence, essentially.
Yeah, I love that as well. And it's like that slowing down, that acceptance of slowing down and allowing it to just be, because and I definitely can see in my past experiences where I've always thought I need to do something else. There's something else,
Yeah.
always something outside of me to do. It's coming back to knowing that all of what's needed is inside of me. And I speak quite a lot, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, about creating space, because we're kind of often on this treadmill of life and we've got no space for anything, if we operate in that way. But when we actually give ourselves permission to actually slow down, it speeds us up in the long run,
Yeah.
actually in the right direction, because it's only in those moments of the pause and the reflection and the coming back to to yourself each time, that you see, okay, maybe there's a different direction, or actually maybe I've not seen that thing. Or you allow the synchronicity even to drop in, because you need space for those kind of miracle moments to unfold. Because if you're trying to create it and pull it into your experience, it's like the universe wants to deliver them things, but how is you've given no space or opportunity for them? And
Yeah.
that's been a big unlearning for me, because I was classic push character, and it's still a lesson for me. I still consistently have to experience that, because we can't learn unless we experience, can we? But yeah, I think and that's what I've really loved and enjoyed about your community as well. We've really given that opportunity to slow down, to actually come back to ourselves, and actually have a moment in business where we pause.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's I think it is something that you understand as you get older. Unfortunately, because I've had to. I was like in perpetual summer. I love summer. I love spring. I love that energy. Like in my 20s and 30s, it's such a great energy. And you've got the arrogance of youth, and you can go for it, and it's like there's really so much to be celebrated in that. But then when you're in your like 20s and 30s, then the tendency to skip the parts, like in your menstrual cycle, to skip the autumn and the winter, so the premenstruum and the menstruation, which are like times of really potent wisdom. Also, it's when all the kind of challenging, discomforting emotions will come to the surface. So if we've practiced in our 20s and 30s just skipping that bit, skipping that bit, or seeing it as problematic, then that's a pattern that we can take forward. But if we're working consciously with our cycles, it could be, it doesn't have to be the menstrual cycle, it could be the lunar cycle, it could be the seasonal cycle, and really going into the valuing of the autumn and the winter, the potency, the veil drops, and you can see yourself and the world more clearly. And yes, you might experience rage or depression or the kind of really juicy emotions that we call negative. But once you let those compost and decay and release, then through the other side, yes, you come back into spring and summer, but actually so much more energized, with so much more clarity and joy and playfulness than if you just keep skipping.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. As I've got older, I've definitely understood that more. I'm still in my mid-30s, but still, I definitely have more appreciation of that now than maybe I ever did in the earlier days. And maybe it's just an awareness also, as I've been on my own journey of understanding that cyclical nature. And I think that is interesting, because, you know, I'm in spiritual circles, if you like, or spiritual groups and circles, but sometimes I think that gets skipped a bit still. There's a bit of a missing piece around this understanding of the cyclical nature. And I do see, even in this community, sometimes this kind of obsession with linear growth, metrics, all of this stuff, which is amazing. If we want to see phenomenal growth, I believe in timeline collapsing. I believe it's possible, but
Yeah.
also not at the expense of that human nature, the way we actually are as women specifically as well. It's so powerful. And I guess I'd love to know, because this is really, really embedded into the work that you do, and you fully embody that. How could I bring that? Say, if I want to know, how do I bring more of that awareness into the business that I run? Or for anyone listening, how do we consider that further? Like, what might be the unconscious things that we maybe don't understand about how because we've not been taught to move with the seasons of ourselves.
So what can you do to kind of unlearn that habit of skipping through the summer, or skipping through the autumn and winter? So it's something I'm creating at the moment is like a seasonal map. So your business is going to have its own seasons. It's a separate entity. It's going to need different things at different times. Then you've got the arc of your life, so where you are in your life cycle, and then you've got your inner seasons and rhythms. So that might be things like menstrual cycle if you're bleeding, or you might follow the lunar cycle, whatever, or it might just be like a change and shift in energy. And then you can kind of take a overview and see, okay, maybe we're all a bit over in summer here, so we're like in high visibility and action, and I know that if I'm in this all the time I'm probably going to burn out at some point. So and I see this in clients a lot. They'll like go for it for 6 weeks and collapse for 3 weeks. So it's like you can either choose to rest and choose to winter for a bit, or you'll have it, your body will just do it anyway. So you can go, okay, well today I think I need a little bit of wintering, so I'll go a bit slower, I'll take a walk, I'll have a nap, or this week I need to just put in a whole day of kind of dreaming and not being productive and see how I go. So I think, you know, having a visual sense of the seasons and being able to just to tune into where you are can help you kind of bring that balance. And your body is always seeking homeostasis and balance, so it's doing its best to create balance. And so when you let it do that, it's much easier than you expending a lot of energy trying to override your kind of natural instincts and your inner harmony.
I love the idea of planning it and understanding it, even knowing that, you know, each week we can actually have that, we could actively plan it out into our week, or maybe even if you don't want to do it weekly, you know, each part of the month. I even find
Yeah,
myself doing that almost daily, you know, like I have like almost a season in a day. I don't know if you
yeah.
think that you can do
Well,
it that way, but
we do, because it's a like we have the solar cycle. So you have from morning dawn until night, and you have that circadian rhythm. So it's allowing yourself to be in the rhythm and in the cycles of nature, and not overriding that. You know, some things I do, I don't start work typically until 11 a.m. unless there's something, little jobs that need doing, and I make sure that I get outside every morning. I make sure that I have time every week just to swim and sauna, go on longer walks in the mountains. And I really notice that when I don't have those rhythms and patterns, I'm not, my nervous system, and it's much more finely tuned these days, will just collapse, and I'm not so irritable with other people, but mostly it turns into like negative self-talk, and that's really not great, because then that really ends up holding you back, because you don't have that natural connection to your life force. So, you know, a lot of these issues, you know, we're told that you should have more confidence, and well, it's like our natural state. If your nervous system is relaxed and your body is well and healthy, your natural state is confidence and connection and openness and creativity. So stop trying to like positive flip and mindset yourself through it, and actually, you know, go for a walk in the woods, phone a friend, eat some good food.
yeah. And that positive flip mindset can lead to the burnout. And I see that as well.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, forcing this, like I call it sometimes like manufactured emotion. I talk
yeah,
about that in marketing as well, which is funny because actually it has like, you can do it for yourself. You can manufacture emotion for yourself. Like, I should be happy now. I should be really enjoying this. But you know what? The truth is, it's not, you know, and that's how we come away from ourselves. We come away from the truth of our expression. And it's the same in marketing to some extent when, you know, when I speak to my clients about content, for example, I just love this topic because it just is not that disruptive, but for some reason is considered disruptive. When, so you and you'll probably understand me on this. everything is energy. Absolutely everything is energy. So when you're in that force of trying to make something, make a piece of content because of the algorithm, or because somebody said you've got to do 5 pieces of this content per week or whatever it is, and you're forcing out that content, if you're feeling in a mood where, do you know what, this week I'm not feeling it, I'm just not feeling it, then don't do it. Because even though the algorithm might say you need to post X, Y, and Z, if the energy behind it isn't there, you're gonna, even if you do achieve high performance, your clients can't feel you in that content. Nothing that you're doing is being felt, and actually the underlying energy that you're experiencing is probably what's going to be felt, and that might go against you ultimately. It may not be a catastrophe, but it just is not going to feel good for you or anybody who's consuming that content. So, and that's where I find, whether it's a corporate client or an individual solo entrepreneur, it doesn't matter, because that content then goes flat. It's got no feeling, no energy, no emotion in it. And actually, it's just going back to that whole thing of, I should be doing that. And you're operating from some other, it's not you, is it? It's ultimately not you in that place.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, it is, there is a dance between like structure and discipline and consistency, which we might call like the masculine, um, and then the feminine and the energy. So in the yoga tradition, like the creative life force that moves through everything is Shakti, and she's in a dance with Shiva, and Shiva brings Shakti into being through the dance. So we can't, we can if you want, but it's not all about just being in flow and just only when you feel like it. And yes, feel into how you are and bring the energy you want to bring, but also do allow yourself to have structure and rhythm and discipline, but not because you're chasing algorithm, not because you've got an agenda, but because there's a safety in that consistency. There's a safety in it for you, and there's a safety in it for your clients, and for your audiences. So again, where there's a truth, there's always going to be paradox. So if there's opposites that seem like they're both true, but one is conflicting with the other, actually that's where you found that kind of potentiality in the middle. So yeah, and I learned that from being a journalist in my 20s. It's like, sometimes you're going to write shit stuff, and sometimes you're going to write great stuff, but the more you write, the more you free the flow. And so finding that rhythm, rather than it being a should or a tactic or a strategy or because you have to.
And it's coming back all the time to your own flow, that flow within you, creating the space to be in flow, to have those days where you're like, I thought I was doing that today, but actually I'm going to be doing this because my energy is different than maybe what I thought. If we're working to like a roadmap that's completely set, we haven't got any space to move and flex. But equally, to the point that you're making, not having any masculine structure is a challenge. And I see that massively. It is, as somebody who's highly multidimensional, I resist structure a lot, because I'd love to just be constantly in that floaty place of full flow all the time. But what I found really beneficial personally is having that balance. So like having enough flex in my week for me to be able to just flip into something that feels really good because I'm in the energy of it, but equally having a little bit of a plan, especially if you've got young kids. I've got young kids, right? So it's impossible for me to just float through life entirely, whilst it would be nice. It's having that masculine structure. And I love that you brought that up, because I really found that this year in my business. So I had a real transformational year in business, and it started quite eeky, I've got to be honest, and it's moved into a place that feels much more in flow now. But one thing I kept on hearing from my guides was, just put in the masculine structure, put in the structures in place to hold the growth. And I would get a little bit annoyed about it sometimes, quite honestly, because it does not really feel that exciting. But it's that masculine structure that you can put in place to hold you to be in the flow and the creativity. Because if it's not there, everything just drops out. So you've got to have that balance, that blend. I love what you said about that, because it's so true. One alone is a disaster. We're 2 in the masculine generally, but equally being 2 in the feminine is a challenge too.
Yeah, just the image I was thinking of when you were saying that is like the pelvis, right? There has to be structure within the pelvis like the muscles of the pelvic floor and the bones of the pelvis to hold the creative potential of having of a baby, of giving birth to new life. So wherever you look in nature, there's structure and form, and then there's the flow of energy within that. But the thing is that, you know, and I could be guilty of it myself, is that because we live in this like very material, rationalist, metric driven, data driven world that's only kind of, you know, getting more that way, in many ways, is that we don't then value the kind of the intangible and the unseen, the kind of field of connection, the energy that moves through to enable the forms and structures to take shape, as well as those structures and forms giving, and you know, context for the energy. It's a bit abstract. So you know, like a really concrete example is like if you're creating a landing page, you need some form of structure to your landing page to know what to flow into. So it's not about just kind of writing whatever you want. It's actually you're taking your client through a journey through that landing page. A bit more creativity and your expression can flow onto that, and then your client gets a sense of who you are and whether they want to take the next step.
Yeah. I love that example actually, because I get a lot of pushback on that at times, especially where I've worked with clients who are highly gifted, you know, and it's really hard to tangibly explain the transformation. And sometimes, and I definitely feel this, you know, sometimes work can come through like, you know, magical ways. We can get those connections and think, oh, well, I don't really need a landing page because, you know, actually a conversation will do it, you know, but when there's nowhere for someone to land, that
Yeah,
conversation could happen and it could be really powerful and beautiful in the moment. And the person goes away and comes back and goes, oh, yeah, I was going to sign up to that. What, you know, what we were talking about today. Then that structure just needs to be there to just move someone from, that sounds really nice, to an actual purchase, a moment from, you know, idea to intention there. And so it doesn't always need to be war and peace, but you know, that's a really good example of that structure just being there enough to just hold the creation that you're building, right?
yeah. And if you don't want to do a landing page because it's not your thing and you like the magic of conversations, you do have a process in the back of your mind. Okay, so if this person seems genuinely interested, and I really honestly think I can help them, then what's the next step? Okay, do you schedule a call with that person, or do you, you know, and then if you schedule a call, what is happening in that call, so you're both really clear on what that is, and then you've got a next step. So you're taking them through, you're not just leaving them kind of and you hanging wondering if you're ever going to come together or not, but
Yeah.
you're really honoring your energy and their energy and the magic that happened in that conversation, and helping it to move through to the next part,
Yeah,
and
I love
not
that.
pushy way, but just like this is a two people coming together, and we want to take the next step together on this path.
Yeah, so it could be a formal landing page if you love making them,
Yeah,
or it could be just a process. Like, but that process is still masculine structure. Even if it's not a very process-driven process, it's still a process. That's where it, you know, I think I love that example. I think this is what this space and this show is all about. It's like really that practical, tangible stuff. Like, what do we even mean when we speak about masculine structure? Because it's such an overused word. But I love that real crystal example of what that really means.
yeah. And it's the same with sales conversations. If you like doing sales conversations, then what's the pathway that you take them through? What's the journey that you take them through, so that you can go into that knowing that you've got a structure that's holding you, and then within that, obviously, if you're doing it by the book, it's going to sound a bit weird. It's probably going to feel a bit weird, but you know that you can use your intuition in that conversation to go a bit deeper on that, or we don't need to do that part. But there's a structure that's holding, and we need. It's like boundaries. Kids need boundaries to feel safe within their relationship. They need to know that they're held. And our clients aren't our children, but they are human, and we all need humans need boundaries, to have that sense of, okay, I'm being held here and I can hold myself in this space because it's a safe space.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up here, because I was really fascinated by something you just said. You said business is an entity in itself. And I actually have my own perspective similarly on this. Well, I'll see. I'd love you to explain what you mean when you say business is an entity in itself. And if that wasn't your exact words, then let me know.
So it's its own energetic thing, right? So if you think about the example is like you could use the same example as a family. So when it's you out in the world, before you're in a partnership, it's you as an energetic entity. And then you come together with someone else, and then you're both two separate energetic entities, but then you create something else in that relationship. And then potentially a child comes in, and then there's something else. So there's all these kind of like organisms within organisms, cells within cells. And so with your business, it's like, if you prescribe to the idea, or if you believe, which I do believe, that life is wanting to be expressed through you, and when you're in service to life, it's because there's something needed in the world and in the way that you express it. But if you attach your identity to it, because it's not you, it's co-created with you, then it can become a bit wonky. But if you like imagine that it's a child, or imagine that it's its own being that needs feeding and nourishing, then you can kind of step back and go, okay, well, what does I need this, I need rest, what does my business need? So maybe your business doesn't need to rest, maybe it just needs more help in it. So you need someone to take that part so that you can rest. Or maybe it's like you're all go, but actually your business is getting too many different moving parts, and you actually just need to rein in some of them and shed some parts of it, so that then you can make much, you can really channel that energy and summer energy into the growth of the business. So it's a dance, like it's a dance between you and what the business wants to be and is and needs.
I love the way you've explained that. And I think that's a really helpful way of looking at business, especially if you're in a business that's growing and it's becoming more than just you in business as well. I've had my experience of that, where
Yeah.
my business tipped from just me to more individuals being in the business. And, that every single person is energy of themselves. They're not the same as you. But that's
Yeah.
also where it can be really beautiful to bring in new energy, different balancing energy, people who've got different ideas. But then that business is forming its own energetic
Yeah.
space. It's its own thing. And I love that. And I think that's also really helpful, because sometimes we can feel like our business, if our business feels like it is absolutely us entirely, then if we decide we've changed, we
Yeah.
might want to do something else. Or sometimes something goes wrong in business, because it does, that's the thing. And it's not even wrong, it's just you've gone on a different direction, or you've learned something. Then it's not a reflection of you. And that's a
Yeah.
really, I find, quite a powerful way that you describe that, because there is that temptation, I think, as entrepreneurs, to say, my business is a reflection of me. Yeah, of course it is, to some extent, but it isn't you specifically. It's like a child. It's like a version that you've birthed into the world, but it's existing in its own way as well. I love
Yeah,
that.
and everyone is gonna create something like really. So this is where it is individual and collective. It's like
Yeah.
separate and connected, because everyone is going to do it in a particular. Everyone is wired to create success in a way, in a different way to other people. Like some people will really, having a big business with loads of moving parts, massive audience and things, is really like what they're here for. And I have clients who have thousands of followers, they're really busy and they're very out there in the world. But for me, I like a micro business, grassroots community, one-to-one intimate connection with clients. And I really like, then my business can balance out the big business, because I'm like the yin to their yang, the kind of the moon to their sun. And so if we think about our businesses being part of, like, you get your wisdom from the cosmos, but if we're all different planets and stars, then we're all gonna have our own dance, and it can't all be the sun.
I love that. And it all just comes back to that unique expression and what we're here for.
Yeah,
Coming back to us, business not looking a certain way, success not necessarily being linear, those things that you can say, but really is important to embed and embody,
yeah,
particularly right now in this moment where we're
yeah.
in. It's such a transformational time. Just like letting business be how is for you. And that's what I really value about you, and how you fully embody that in what you do. You fully embody that in the spaces that you've created. And yeah, I love to say it's quietly disruptive, because it's different. Not everybody is, able to stand in that fully. So yeah, it's amazing. And I've absolutely loved having you on and having this conversation today. There's so much wisdom in here. It's just full, and we could just keep going on different tangents. And I'm sure you're going to come back on and share again at some point, because there's so much we can talk about and so much synergy in, and when you said we bring the wisdom through in different ways, but the wisdom is the same. The information is similar because it's coming from truth, and that's I love. So I've absolutely loved having you on here. I'd love to just ask you before we go, how can people connect with you? What's the best way to contact you if they want to learn more? And I will, of course, put all your links in the show notes as well.
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Jessica Adams in Rhythm, and same on LinkedIn. I'm just about to publish a really beautiful new website, so that'll be live soon. That's jessicaadams.co. And yeah, that's me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, join me again for more of these amazing conversations with incredible, inspiring women just like Jessica. And see you again soon.